Member of the group called the Elders to raise awareness about the status of women in our world. And I really appreciate that he decided to write this book and bring this to our attention. He's 89 years old, so I think he's like, I got some things I gotta say and I gotta get it out there, so he put this book together. Mr. Carter supports his thesis by naming the atrocities and injustices that women experience in all areas of the world, and no one's exempt from his critique. He identifies two primary factors that contribute to the global practices of discrimination and abuse of females. The first contributing influence is the presumption that males are superior to females. In the 80s and 90s, I participated in a women's studies group at Brescia University under Marita Greenwald. The participants were predominantly Catholic, but there were folks that participated from a lot of diverse backgrounds and spiritual traditions. Marita commented more than once in our gatherings that sexism is the original sin, because it is the foundation of all the value-laden divisions we have witnessed in our world that create so much conflict and suffering. When we divide the human population by determining that males are superior to females and create political, social, and economic systems based on that belief, then the groundwork has been laid for all the value-laden divisions we've created since. Some of these divisions are based on genetic differences and some are not. But the suffering of these discriminatory practices is devastating for the oppressor and the oppressed. Individuals are denied the opportunity to achieve their full human potential, and everyone's dignity is at stake. We're born into these structures, and we're not able to fully escape them even when we become aware of how unjust they are. Mr. Carter makes a comparison between the racism he experienced growing up in the South and the pervasive sexism of our world today. He states, all the legal, political, social, and religious systems accepted the premise that black people were in some basic ways inferior to white people. Even those in the dominant class who disagreed with this presumption remained relatively quiet and enjoyed the benefits of the prevailing system. So how did we get here? There's no simple answer, but religion has played a major role in promoting the belief in the superiority of males through the misinterpretation of sacred text. Weekly, we hear of crimes against women living in predominantly Muslim countries that impose Sharia law. The Catholic Church, the tradition that I grew up in, has equated the ordination of women as one of the gravest canonical crimes in the church, on par with sexually abusing a child. And this statement was issued in an edict from 2010. So a male who exploits a woman feels justified because he's convinced that his victim is inferior even in God's eyes. The second factor that Mr. Carter believes has contributed to the global abuse of women and girls is the acceptance of violence. And he states, in too many cases, we use violence as a first rather than a last resort, so that even deadly violence has become commonplace. He begins his book talking about the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. The nations desired to prevent human rights violations that they had observed in World War II and the Holocaust. They were so saddened by the destruction of World War II that they really were ready to come together and to dream a world of peace. And so the document articulates ways to achieve this equality and justice. And I found it inspiring to recognize that the nations were willing in 1948 to come together and see this. And you can tell by the language that they use in these articles that they really had a good understanding of what's really necessary, the awareness of the status of women and how that created continued ongoing oppression and injustice comes out in these documents. Article 1 says, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. We've heard that phrase, all men are created equal, but we realized it didn't mean everybody. So I really appreciate that they used a different language and they'd come to that realization in 48. Article 16 says men and women of full age without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion have the right to marry and to found a family. They didn't include the word gender in that, but the last part of that statement, I think, is more inclusive because it states, marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of the intending spouses. So it has a feeling of more openness and tolerance there. Article 23 says everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work. I think that's amazing that they said that in 48. Article 25 states, motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection. And I truly appreciate how the document acknowledges that gender does denote difference in the roles that people play, but women aren't devalued because of that difference. These 30 articles promote a vision of the world that I'd really like to live in. Sadly, no nation has fully adopted these precepts, and many nations reject the ideas completely. The document is held up as a standard to challenge and assess the promotion and the violation of rights as they're evaluating different countries. What has occurred, rather than this vision of peace, is increased violence. And Mr. Carter points out that the U.S., more than any other nation, has been involved in armed conflict since World War II. Just like the racism that allowed the slave trade to continue for decades, sexism goes unchallenged, justified by religious beliefs, and protected with cowardice by those who benefit from the way things are. I want to point out some of the most grievous offenses that are mentioned in the book. You've probably heard about a lot of these as well. Female genital cutting is the ritualistic mutilation of the bodies of young girls to promote their chastity. It is a wide practice in Africa. It's carried on more in countries that practice Islamic faiths. National and international resolutions and laws forbidding the procedure have had little impact on deterring the women in these areas from continuing the tradition that causes lifelong health consequences. Rape of women in the U.S. military and on college campuses is ignored and goes unpunished, largely underreported, because women fear retribution in the military and are discouraged to press charges by college administrators that fear stigma if rapes are reported occurring on their campuses. The victim is silenced and blamed. Women generally don't report rape. And it's my experience that women have so internalized the message that you're not worth much and this is what you deserve, that they minimize the experiences of sexual abuse and assault. And I see this repeatedly in the work that I do at the Spouse Abuse Shelter. And most of the clients that I work with there have a lifelong history of sexual abuse. Honor killings occur in many countries around the world that are governed by Sharia law. A woman that has been raped is then stoned to death by her male relatives to protect the family's reputation. An estimated 20,000 women are victims of honor killings each year. These occur most frequently in the Middle East and South Asia. But in 2010, 2,800 honor killings were reported by the police in the United Kingdom. The U.S. Department estimates that 800,000 people are traded across international borders each year, and 80% of these are women and girls. And they're traded in the sex trade. And Atlanta is the hub for a lot of that trafficking that happens. The book also discusses disparity in incomes, the scarcity of women represented in politics, and the inaccessibility of health care to women. For the past 22 years, I've worked in this community with indigent women and their children. And for the last 18 years, I've been employed at the Spouse Abuse Shelter. So my work compels me to be aware of social injustices, both locally and globally. And I'm just overcome a lot of times about all the suffering that is experienced in our community and worldwide, and I vacillate between being numb and being enraged. But reading Mr. Carter's book alarmed me because these injustices that I mentioned, and he also describes a lot more that I didn't address, that they're occurring at a much greater rate than I realized. But the daunting statistic that really ignited my rage again is from a 2012 article in Science magazine that's cited in his book, entitled Unnatural Selection: Choosing Boys Over Girls and the Consequences of a World Full of Men. The article states that there are 160 million missing females as a result of the worldwide practice of femicide. And I'm going to pull a quote from his book where he speaks about this. Most of these lethal decisions are still concentrated in the Asian countries of India, China, and South Korea. But the option of femicide is also exercised in smaller nations and in the more advanced Western world. It appears that more than twice as many girls have been killed by their parents during my lifetime as the total number of combatants and civilians lost in World War II. To put this into perspective, it is estimated that 500,000 were killed in the Rwanda genocide of '94, and 6 million Jews were victims of the Holocaust. The pervasive elimination of girls, both before and after birth, is obvious and well known, but it continues. Preventative laws have been ineffective, and the only apparent solution is to convince parents that a daughter can, in all respects, be an asset to the family. This can be accomplished only by ensuring that girls are educated and given equal opportunities to develop their talents, to earn an income, and to serve their family and community. So I wanted us to maybe have a discussion today, and I'm going to throw out a couple of questions. The first is, what will it mean for us moving forward that so many women are missing in the world's population? Because the part of the world where this occurs more frequently is like 40% of the global population. And this practice has been going on now for 30 years. And as I said, we're born into these systems of injustice. They exist. But we continue them a lot of times because we're not aware, or we haven't imagined a way to do things differently. So my question also is, what practices are you aware of personally that suggest that women have a different status in the world than men. Things that we're engaged in our day-to-day interactions. So I just open the floor. Anybody has any comments? Yeah.
You know, you continue to hear that women are paid less than men in different areas of work. You know, everywhere that I've ever worked in the last 30 years, I don't think that's been the case. So where is this happening, and why is it allowed to happen when the laws are, you know, supposedly saying equal pay for equal work?
Well, he had pointed out that CEOs, women still are earning significantly less, and that college professors there's a difference in what their pay scale is. So,
Nikki?
Particularly in like traditionally female roles like nursing and teaching, there's a more, you know, equal system because women were there first. But where they're trying to break into like the STEM programs, the science, technology, engineering, and math, that's very male dominated. So you have to be twice as good and do it backwards and in heels, as they say.
This might be a dumb question, but do they take into account, because when children are born, it falls mainly on the woman to provide for like the first 6 months. With all these statistics and with all these like means and averages, do they take into account that it's primarily the woman who takes off work? Because here in America, we don't have paid maternity leave.
I know.
So do they take into account the 6, 7, 8, 9 months the woman's off work when they do these? Whatever it is into the average of the wages for women, you think?
I don't know how all that is calculated, but you know, people have brought that up, and that's true that women are out of the workforce more. But because we're out of the workforce more, you know, we end up earning less over a lifetime. We don't get those promotions as much and things like that. And you know, a lot of women are supporting themselves and their children. I mean, we're set up in a system like there's, you know, all families are 2 incomes, and women suffer overall. You know, they live longer and they experience more poverty because they are discriminated against because they bear children almost in the pay scale. I don't know, you know, that's, if we have more women in political office, more women that are at the table that have some input about how laws are made and how systems are set up, how corporations are run, I think we would see some differences. I don't know what the answer is, you know, but I just see the absence of women in all the decision-making processes, I think, are working against us.
I think it's strange that the American feminist movement has been strangely silent on the way Muslim women are treated. And that includes in this country. There was an honor killing in Florida where the father ran down his daughter in a parking lot of a shopping center. And the female prosecutor wanted to go for first-degree murder because Florida has no compunctions about executing first-degree murderers. But the jury came back with second degree. He's going away for a long time. But the American feminist movement, including Hillary, you don't hear them speak out against it because it would be politically delicate for our good friends in the Middle East. But anyway, I'm like Will Scarlet. I wander the countryside bringing humor and laughter. So when Yahweh created Adam and then he took the rib and created Eve, he said, I have created you to serve your Lord and Master who's lying over there in his hammock waiting for you to bring him his martini. It's always good to be in Owensboro, and that was a delightful cookout up at that beautiful farm last month when I was here. And I'm looking for the hostess. I think there she is. She's hiding. Anyway, it's good to be back in Owensboro.
Did you go say that, Lee?
I did. I worked for a company that promoted every aspect of equality. Not at first. I worked for them for 40 years. When I first started at State Farm, women were only secretaries. They couldn't even be professionals. But that changed. And Gail, as a matter of fact, was the second female to be promoted into a management, we call it management, but she was an arson fraud investigator, a high professional. And she didn't have a college education either, but she made it on her own abilities. And the company I worked for, I did the budget for my unit, which had 34 people in it. And there was no sexist. Everybody was promoted based on their performance to the best that we could determine that. And toward the end of my management up in Maryville, I had the largest bodily injury litigation unit in the state. And I had 9 professionals in that unit, and 7 of them were female. So a lot of companies are trying hard to change what you're talking about. And I would say for the last 15 or 20 years that I worked for State Farm, we were all over that. And so I would defend the company that I work for in that regard.
I feel like a man is not a man unless he stands up for a woman. I have a supervisor. He's the only male supervisor that I have. And I was having some problems cleaning rooms. My bipolar had gotten the best of me and I couldn't stay focused to clean rooms, and he knew I was struggling and he came up and helped me. And in my profession as a housekeeper, we're all women. We're the cleaning ladies. And men do the garbage and they do the heavy lifting. And there was a worker carrying trash past the rooms that me and my supervisor, he actually came into the room and helped me clean. And he stopped and said, "Ray, what are you doing? That's women's work." And that's, you know, that's just the stigma that we get as cleaning ladies. He couldn't believe that a supervisor was helping me clean. And I just feel like Ray is a man. When you stand up for a woman, and Ray said, "You need to go on past, I'm helping her." And he said, "I'll talk to you later." And I knew he was in trouble for saying that. And when a man stands up for a woman, that's a real man. So that's what I believe.
I was raised up in Muhlenberg County, which is a coal-producing county, and I don't know exactly what year that women started working underground mines. It's probably been 25 or 30 years ago. And a lot of the males did not like it for what various reasons, and I've even heard them say, "Well, she's taking a man's job to support his family." And my wife and I, we told him, we said, "Well, probably some no good man left her that dream she's having to work underground mines." But, you know, I don't think most women wanted to, you know, that's a terrible, terrible job. It's dangerous, dirty, hard, but great money. I mean, you know, it was a union job and they made great money and they had great benefits. I don't know how many's working that job now, but I just remember through the years I've heard things about that, you know, that kind of a story.
I know we probably don't have statistics or information about this, but I just wonder what the difference was when the religious paradigm was matriarchal instead of patriarchal. Because to me, it makes sense if you think of God as male. Well, who can get any better than God? God's the greatest display of everything. And if you attach the idea that he's male, well, then the males are the greatest. They're the best. They're the most qualified. They're the smartest. And everybody else, if you're not a male, then you are inferior. I mean, I know we don't have any information about that kind of society because it was centuries ago.
I think there's a resurgence, though, of this idea of spiritualities that are more in tune with honoring the earth and honoring the feminine and the yin and the yang and the balance. And I think when those spiritualities, you know, begin to become more influential in people's way of thinking, I think it makes a difference. The feminine is much more honored. It's seen as, you know, the other part of the balance, the paradigm. Okay, there's so many hands up. Who was first?
I just to your point about, or Dixie's point, I mean, in Europe before the French Revolution, the aristocracy ruled. The aristocracy was composed of men and women. The women in the aristocracy, which is only maybe 10% of the total population, but they had way more power than any man in the lower classes. So they still were discriminated against to a great, but not a total degree, but to a great degree within the aristocracy. But still, the women were of a higher social status than 90% of the men who were not aristocratic.
Couple things.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I think, though, personally, it's because I see it working in the public all the time. I understand women have had for generations things to put up with, but I think a lot of the feminist movement is good ideas and whatnot. But whenever I'm seeing a man and a woman and their friend, another man and a woman, sitting at the table, and the women refuse to let the man speak, and the response to that was, "Oh, he's too stupid. Oh, he's not going to get it. I take care of the check." I mean, it's like the feminist movement or the women's equality movement, just like the gay rights movement. You kind of got to swing with both people who agree with, people who don't agree with, men, women, because I feel if there's too much anger injected into it, or there's just too much conflict, because you see it all the time, like in TV shows, men are now the folly, men are now the stupid, men are now the big bumbling idiot who can't even balance a checkbook. You know, where would they be without the woman? So as a man, that kind of infuriates me a little bit because, you know, I mean, yes, there are stupid men. I agree. But there's equally stupid women, you know? And it's just like anytime you put a big blonde up there, like the toy, the Richard Pryor movie, the blonde with the big bosoms and everything, you know, I don't think that would fly as much anymore because then you'd have all the women going. Just like if you had, like, a LGBT guy going out there just dressing in a tutu, you know, people want to be so politically correct now that they're kind of shortchanging what they're trying to do as far as making things better for.
I don't get as angry as you do when it seems like if you're supporting women, you're against men, and working at the spouse abuse shelter, we're male haters. I don't hate men. I've been married to one of the best guys ever. I had a great dad. You know, I know wonderful men, and trying to communicate to women who have been abused, there are wonderful men, loving, considerate, supportive, whole human beings, and when you don't have that experience, it's really hard to imagine. But for me, feminism is not anti-male.
Right.
It's equality. It's like honoring both and not trying to pit one against the other.
But I think a lot of that message, though, is kind of
Oh, I agree. I hear it.
hidden. You know, it's like, I mean, I've been around men who've been abused by women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had.
I know, we
men-
see that.
Yeah, you know, I've had men come to me telling me they've been raped by women. You know, and it's just like
Yeah.
that's never even brought up, and you know, it's like a double-edged sword. And you were talking about the men taking out the garbage. At my work, we have a thing with the dressing where we have buckets of stuff. For months, the women were like, "Oh, I can't lift this, I can't lift this, I can't lift this," so they refused to do it. So I just started taking the big bucket and putting it in the party room and just being like, "Okay, well, here you go. Now it's your turn to do it." You know, I think there's a long way to go. I think we've come a long way because, I mean, I see it every day in my personal thing, but people just need to come together and just realize that, hey, to each their ability, to each their wants, to each their needs. You know, we're all human beings. We all have blood. We all have a heart. And just because like I might be good at bookkeeping and he might be good at weightlifting doesn't mean that his gift is any less important than my gift. Well, that's my position.
Yeah, to kind of get off the subject, because for years TV was all about how stupid the female was. Okay, so men are getting it back. Not that makes it right. And I don't, okay, now what?
Exactly.
It might be part of the problem, but it originated where? In testosterone. Okay. Well, my point is that I grew up in a family where women were encouraged to do whatever they want. However, I have sisters that believe that women should do anything they want. However, they go back and they vote in the way that is fear-based. You know, and I think fear has a lot to play in this. For whatever reason, they are afraid to see a woman in office, or they want a woman in office, but then they get disappointed when they get one nominated, or they go back to those old fears of men needing to take care of them. And until we can get over our fears, until we can become more confident and be able to confident in their choice, I think the problem will continue to perpetuate.
Well, the only paradigm model we have of power is this hierarchical thing, where the person at the top has power over. If we could design and think and imagine that we could be in a more relational power structure and get over this fear that, well, if we just flip and giving women power, then it'll just be a reverse of what we have. I don't want a reverse of what we have. I want a circle, not a ladder.
Right. Exactly.
I've raised my kids, 3 boys, and then my husband's at home. It's all in the way you raise your boys, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You have to raise them to respect women, and if more people will do that, you know, I've seen people that are friends of my boys who've been raised different from the way they've been raised, and it's just, it starts at home.
Exactly.
The younger people could help me on this, but at one time, rap was so demeaning to women and the words that they used. Has that changed?
No, it hasn't.
You know, and perhaps, you know, Hollywood and all these other people also need to step in and clean up their act also. And like you said, with television, if whether it's men or women that's being degraded. But to me, I heard some, because I used to work at a liquor store, and they come by with this rap, and it was like, hey, I don't want to wait on these people. You know? But no, it's real. It just needs to change.
Absolutely.
I have a friend who's just strident feminist, you know. When she got pregnant, she was like, oh, I hope I have a boy, I hope I have a boy. And I was like, why? You know, we like the little pigtails and what have you. And she said, because if you have a boy, all you have to do is teach them how to be a gentleman. But if you have a girl, you have to teach them how to deal with disappointment in wages, with inequality, with violence, yada, yada, yada. She had a girl, but I just thought that was kind of sickening, kind of made me nauseous that you know what I mean, that's what you're setting your girls up to do, and you're setting your boys up to be like coddling to women. Not that that's what a woman is, but the boy was supposed to be taking care of the woman, and the woman was supposed to need to be taken care of, and they weren't even born yet, and that mindset was in place, rather than, oh, I can't wait to see what this kid's going to be good at, what this kid's going to need. You know what I mean? It was like already in there, how it was going to be.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with Facebook. Oh, you got a comment?
Well, I was gonna, last week, let me say first of all, I believe that we, as a people, we carry out in ritual the things that we believe in our soul. And last week we were at a wedding, some people, really good people, I mean, one of Barb's friends since she was a teenager. And I don't have any issue that they have anything bad going on in their head. But what I saw at the wedding was the men standing up at the altar, waiting for the girls to come down, women to come down the aisleway, and for the father to escort the bride, the future bride, and to hand her off.
That's what we do. Hand her off.
I believe that by that single ritual, we set the stage for what we are saying, what we believe to be true. That we own, the dads own their daughters, and they have the power to do with them what they will. Now, that's an exaggeration, and I think that lots of men, if they, I mean, women want it too. I mean, I'm sure this young lady was just thrilled to have her father hand her off.
It's
walk
the
her
tradition.
down. Yeah, it's a terrible tradition.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely horrid tradition that has a horrid history.
Yeah.
And we need to change it.
That's right.
What we need, I mean, I don't have any issue with mothers and fathers taking their daughter down the aisle, mothers and fathers taking their son down the aisle and joining these two together.
That's better. We can do better. We can. We'll do better.
But I do believe that those symbols that we carry out in our sacred dishes, that they mean something.
You're so conscious.
And when you said that's tradition, that's what the Middle East is saying.
That's right.
And what
That's
Asia
right.
is
Just
saying.
because we've always done it that way doesn't mean we have to keep on.
Well, and those are things we need to rethink and evaluate. Am I saying
You
what
just
I really
have to
mean?
think.
Yeah.
Before, you just have to think and see it.
Yeah, your hand up.
Yes. A few years ago, there was an article in the local paper about all 4 higher education institutions in Davis County and Owensboro had female presidents or directors. And there wasn't too long after that, they began to leave. Something happened. I don't know if some of the good old boys didn't realize there was all 4 of them was females or what happened. But it's kind of always been strange to me that now there's 4 males that's presidents of the higher education institutions here. But you know, I don't know if there's any conspiracy behind it or not. But I just always thought it was kind of strange.
Deeper than I can think, but I really think religion is at the basis of just about all that we've talked about, and especially this 4 East bit, you know. You know, the woman that won't give up Christianity and they're going to beat her to death with 100 lashes and then hang her. You know, that's religious. They approve of that. And so it makes me question what is religious stuff all about, see.
But Jimmy Carter himself, you know, he's a Baptist, and he's always been a member of the Southern Baptist Convention. But just a few years ago, he and Rosalynn pulled away from that because in their
No women are ever permitted to teach men.
Yeah, and they don't want any female pastors, and you know, just really articulating again these oppressive standards because they saw that they were moving away from them, which was insightful, you know. But they pulled away, and I'm sure that was a terrible struggle for them to have to leave that convention because he'd always been a full-fledged member and leader in that. But you know, he said, I can't sign off on that.
But that convention, though, could take Bible quotations and justify what they were doing. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, he spends a lot of time talking about that. I mean, he talks to people from various traditions and how they're twisting the text, and also how people are finding in the text justification for the equality of men and women. So, yeah, it's just
3 or 4 years.
You can make the Bible say anything.
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago.
Another text.
It was near here. I think it was in an adjoining county, but a Baptist church had hired a preacher, and he'd been there a few months. And then they learned that his wife was also a preacher. They fired him.
Well, these topics, I hate bringing it up on Father's Day because it's almost... I don't know, and I've raised 5 kids, 4 girls in that group, and they're very fortunate to have him as a role model, as a male role model in their life. I wanted to close with a video by an artist, Jennifer Beresin, I think is how you pronounce her name. It's the Buddha Metta prayer. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be free. And it's just beautiful. It's very prayerful. It's very soothing. And this is the kind of thing that I need to listen to and do because of the work that I do. It's pretty, I see the worst of the worst that men can do and sometimes do to women. And it's overwhelming. And I have diagnosed myself with secondary trauma. So, you know, I hope you enjoy this, and I hope it kind of lifts your spirits from the tone of the presentation.
all that has been broken, all that has been lost. I cannot understand the suffering that life brings, war and hate and hunger, and a million other things. When I've done all that I can, and I try to do my part, let sorrow be the doorway to an open heart, and the light on the hills is full of mercy. The wind in the trees, it comes to save me. The silence, it will never desert me. I long to hold the whole world in these arms. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings everywhere be free. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings everywhere be free. May all May I be happy. May all beings be safe. May I be safe. May all beings everywhere always be free. May you be happy. May all beings, may you be safe. May all, may you be free everywhere. May you always be free,
May your heart be filled with mercy and compassion.
quiero tener el mundo en mi regazo. Yo solo quiero tener el mundo protegido al pie. Ay, 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 protegido aquí, aquí.
Dans la journée, il y a toujours le cœur qui reste.